Most Canadians spend decades building up their RRSP without realizing that it comes with an expiration date, because at age 71, the rules change. And if you haven't planned properly for that transition, the tax consequences later in retirement can surprise you. Now, most people know that they have an RRSP, but far fewer understand what happens when that RRSP can no longer stay an RRSP. In this video, I want to walk you through what changes at age 71 and why it matters, and why proper planning before that age can make an enormous difference later on. Because for many Canadians, this isn't just an administrative change. It's the moment where tax deferral starts turning into forced taxable income, and understanding this transition matters. So let's start with actually what happens with your RRSP. An RRSP stands for Registered Retirement Savings Plan. And I want to emphasize the word savings because during your working years, the RRSP is primarily an accumulation vehicle. It's designed to help you to reduce taxes on contributions and to defer taxes over time. But at age 71, that changes. By the end of the year in which you turn 71, your RRSP must be converted to a RRIF, a Registered Retirement Income Fund. Now, notice the shift in language. We're going from savings to income, from accumulation to withdrawals. The government spends decades allowing you to defer taxes, but the RRSP was never designed to allow you to permanently avoid taxes, only to defer them. Now, if you have a locked-in retirement account, those follow a very similar transition. The LIRA, which stands for Locked-in Retirement Account, typically converts into a LIF, or Life Income Fund. Different jurisdictions have different rules surrounding minimums, maximums, and unlocking provisions, and we'll discuss some of those planning opportunities in future videos. But for now, I want to simply focus on understanding the structural changes that take place. These accounts eventually move from savings mode into withdrawal mode, and once that happens, minimum withdrawals are required. Every year, the government requires you to withdraw at least a minimum percentage from your RRIF or LIF, primarily based on your age and the account value on January 1st of that year. And in the case of a LIF account, there's often maximum withdrawal limits as well. So this is no longer a situation where you simply have the money untouched indefinitely. The account now starts generating mandatory taxable income, whether you need the money or not. And this is where tax planning becomes critical. On the surface, mandatory withdrawals may not sound like a major issue, but the problem is what happens when those withdrawals begin stacking up on top of everything else. Because by this stage of retirement, many Canadians are already receiving income from multiple sources like CPP, OAS, employer pensions, investment income from non-registered accounts, and then suddenly mandatory RRIF or LIF withdrawals start getting layered on top. And this is where retirement income can begin climbing much higher later in life than many people expected. None of these income sources may seem problematic individually. The issue is what happens when they all arrive together. Now I want to show you something important. As people's income increase, so do marginal tax rates. So when we look at tax brackets in provinces like Manitoba, Ontario, BC, we can clearly see higher income levels gradually expose more of your money to higher taxation. And in some cases, this even triggers OAS clawback, which means part of your government benefits may effectively start getting taken back. And if large RRIF balances still remain later in life, particularly at the death of the last spouse, those accounts can become fully taxable all at once, potentially sending a substantial portion of those assets to taxes instead of to loved ones. Eventually, the tax deferral phase ends and the withdrawal phase begins, but many people look at this and think, I'm just going to deal with this later. And on the surface, that feels logical and it feels good because no one likes to voluntarily increase or create taxes earlier than necessary. The problem is that delaying withdrawals for too long can gradually reduce flexibility because tax planning in retirement is all about control of timing, control of income, and that controls taxation. Once mandatory withdrawals begin, that starts to disappear. And that's why starting the process of planning earlier is very important. This is why sometimes I describe large unmanaged RRIF balances as a potential tax time bomb. Not because RRIFs are bad, but because unmanaged withdrawals can eventually become very expensive. And this brings us to a real planning window. The best RRIF planning usually happens before RRIFs even exist. often when you're in your 50s or 60s, when you still have that flexibility, because that stage, there may be opportunities to smooth out your income over time, to strategically manage tax brackets, to coordinate withdrawals with other assets, and reduce future mandatory withdrawal pressure. Finally, we want to potentially improve long-term estate outcomes. Now, I don't want you to go too deep into advanced RRIF planning strategies at this point in this video. There are advanced strategies designed to help you to manage these issues more efficiently, including strategies sometimes referred to as RRIF meltdown planning, but those strategies are highly individualized and beyond the scope of this video. The important point is this: waiting as long as possible is not usually the most tax efficient strategy, and sometimes proper planning means creating more balance over your lifetime instead of allowing income to become heavily concentrated later on. Now at this point, there are a few important questions worth thinking about. What could your registered accounts potentially look like by age 71? What other income sources might already exist by then? CPP, OAS, employer pensions, non-registered investment income. Once these mandatory RRIF or LIF withdrawals begin, could that additional income start pushing you into that next tax bracket? Could OAS clawback eventually become an issue? Because for many Canadians, the focus has always been on delaying taxes for as long as possible. But delaying taxes and minimizing taxes are not the same thing. And this is where proper withdrawal planning matters. Because good retirement planning isn't simply about taking the minimum withdrawal once the government forces you to. It's about coordinating when income is taken, which assets are drawn down first, which withdrawals interact with pensions and government benefits, and ultimately how to maximize retirement lifestyle while minimizing unnecessary taxation over time. Can you confidently say that you've taken the proper steps to maximize what goes to your loved ones and minimize what goes to CRA? Because sometimes the most effective retirement tax strategy isn't about delaying withdrawals for as long as possible. It's strategically taking money out earlier under controlled conditions. And that's where advanced RRIF planning begins. If you found this video helpful, make sure to like, subscribe, and follow for future retirement and tax planning content. And if you'd like help reviewing your own RRSP or RRIF or retirement withdrawal strategy, feel free to reach out. We'll show you how you can live for today while planning for a better tomorrow.